In this video, I'm going to go over some of the most important steps that I take that help me learn quick passages in a shorter amount of time, especially the kind that are formed by scales. Actually, this is a huge topic and it can be discussed for hours. We can do a lot of different things on this. So for the sake of the length of this video, I'll focus primarily on the left hand technique. There's a whole lot to be said about bow technique too, and maybe I'll just throw in a tip or two in the video because it's impossible to address one hand without bringing in the other. Of course, there is a ton of repertoire examples that we can use for this. And to keep things as clear as possible, as my example in this video, I will show you how I would practice the third movement of the Tchaikovsky Violin Concerto, because there are a lot of scales in that movement. If there is time, we can use a slurred example from Mendelssohn's third movement. But of course, apply these to whatever it is you are practicing. Also, before you begin practicing whatever passage may be in question, before we bring it up to tempo, there are two things that you need to get clear about. Number one, know what key you are in, or what harmonic progression is taking place in the particular passage. So assuming that you already practice scales on a regular basis outside of repertoire, labeling the chord names underneath different sections, it's very helpful and it saves a lot of time because your hearing and finger dexterity will be kind of more correlated with each other. If you don't practice scales on a regular basis, you should probably start doing that. Otherwise, bringing these kind of passages up to tempo will be very, very frustrating, very difficult, and it'll take a really, really long time. The second thing that you need to get clear about is your choice of fingerings. And actually, this is something that as you bring a passage up to tempo, as you work your way up, you're going to discover a finger choice that you made may or may not work for you. It's something that is hard to tell right away sometimes. So when I make fingering choices, I kind of try to imagine what it's going to be like eventually. Sometimes on the first day of practice of something, I have something called beginner's luck and it works out great, and then somehow on day 3 or day 4 sometimes certain things don't work out and I have to come up with a new fingering. So it's good to have this time of a few days to kind of really take into perspective to see which finger choice you're going to make and which one you're going to commit to. Okay, so let's take a look at the Tchaikovsky, some of these scales. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is to organize the left hand by hand frames, by hand shapes. So what do I mean by that? Usually when we say hand frame, we refer to the general shape of the hand, but specifically what I'm referring to is identifying on each string and in different positions of the passage what the hand looks like. Does it look like this? Does it look like this? Does it look like this? Does it look like that? Does it look like that? Or like that? On each string, it may or may not change depending on the pattern, right? So first of all, what key are we in? We're in D major, very clear. Starting on the note D. Now, this is where the scale starts. So I know right away on the G string, this is the hand shape. And then on the D string, I know it changes. It goes from this to this. And then, so, same thing for the A string. And then I know to bring my third finger up. So, and then when I shift, how do I know where these notes are without fishing around for them? Well, first of all, I know that I'll be in this hand shape, these two fingers on one string, these two on another string. So one way I can organize it by hand shape. So first is to know these patterns, but then what I might do, instead of playing the notes in order, I will take each group of notes on each string, and I'll kind of set my entire hand in whatever shape it has to be in, and I'll play the notes at a random order. So for example, and then when I have to go to third position, so to simplify this one, since it's on two different strings, I might just put this shape on the A string or D, and then all four fingers are set before I even start playing. I already have this ready to go. So even if I'm not playing a certain finger, I have the shape ready for that specific group of notes. Now, after we identify these hand shapes and organize them, that's when we can do the slow practice under tempo. You can use the metronome if you want. You can also do it under a slur to simplify, to not have to worry about the sautille or détaché if you're doing it slowly. When you do slow practice, instead of paying attention on individual notes, instead pay attention to those hand shapes and hear the harmony, especially if the chord is changing whatever passage you are practicing. Also, in this case, so I'm going to start putting together some parts. So what I'm doing is preparing the left hand early. So the fingers, even though I'm starting on the first finger, my third finger is already hovering above where it's going to go. Because in tempo, I know it's going to be much, much faster. So when I do it slow, I keep in mind what the ultimate tempo is going to be. And the shift, we want to shift a little bit sooner than we think, just a little bit. Not now, of course, you don't want it to completely hide. We don't want to lose that note. But we can't be, if we're late on the shift, it's going to become very jerky, and we don't want that, because that's actually going to create a lot of tension in the hand, and it's going to lose the ability to put the fingers down lightly, and also it can create improper balance, and then later it can get all tight, because you know this is a quick passage, so we don't want the left hand to get tired. We want to be also very actually, this is another thing, the way we put down our fingers when we practice slowly. So you want it to be kind of matter of fact, but at the same time there needs to be an elasticity and a lightness to the fingers. So I put the fingers down very kind of with a good energy, but at the same time, the moment the finger taps down, it kind of rebounds back a little bit, so it doesn't end up jammed into the fingerboard, because that's what we want to avoid at all costs. If we jam our fingers into the fingerboard, we cannot speed up the passage. So here, I know that all fingers are half step apart, and then I know I have to slide one. Or if I do the other one, the second time we go through this and it changes the harmony. So I know here again I'm thinking shapes. So 2 and 3 together, 1 and 2 together. So for this shift, I prepare, see how my elbow comes around early, very early, and then we're going to do a finger exchange. And then finger ready. Okay, so now let's take this last run up and practice that one. So for that last passage, the one goes up the E string. I'm actually, because I'm thinking about how it's going to be later when it's faster, I know that I won't have time to move my elbow back and forth. So after the shift, the exchange shift, so I'm here. So even if I shift back and move my thumb, I'm actually going to keep the elbow here because I have to go up right away. So it's easier, otherwise I won't have time right here. Once I hit my instrument, I won't have time to turn around. Anyway, this is a little bit individual in terms of whether you make a true shift back to second position and then up. It's actually second and then third right away. You can either shift back or you can reach down. I personally, because I have small hands, I like to shift, but I try to minimize how much shifting happens here, because especially because I know I'll have to go back up right away. By the way, if you're getting any value from this video so far, give it a quick thumbs up down below to help support this channel, and so that YouTube is more likely to share this video with other folks who could really use more guidance on this topic. Your support is greatly appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to get more practice guidance. So for the next practice strategy, let's just change things up a little bit and let's use a different example. Let's take this snippet from the third movement of Mendelssohn. You see, this passage also scales. What key are we in? E major. There are some parts where we have to make string crossings very seamless under a slur. So in this one, this is the next strategy, is to identify any double stop frames that we can use to patch up some of those string crossings. So right here. So to play that last bit. So I have to get my hand into a triple stop. And then next practice strategy is to chunk things up. And so sticking with Mendelssohn here, my mind has to go at a certain rate. I can't think about every single note. Certain notes are going to be impulse notes that are going to go with the beat. Or maybe, depending on what we have to do here, if there's a bow change, we're going to decide which notes are going to be impulse notes that we're going to really kind of focus on, and the others are going to be more passive. So, taka, 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 taka. So I'm thinking 8 notes per group, right? So if I'm going to practice slowly, for now I'll change the bow direction earlier. And then I can do it in dotted rhythm. And so on. So then you can do also. And of course you can do this with or without the metronome. So now I'll chunk it up 4 notes per group. I'm not worried about both directions right now. Okay, so then I can change it up. I can put the pause on the second group of each 4 notes. So I can make all kinds of variations on this to make it even more difficult than it already is. Finally, since we use Tchaikovsky and Mendelssohn as examples in this video, notice one of them is separate bows, the other is slurred. And that's to do the opposite of what the music asks. So for the Tchaikovsky, if I practice it slurred, so right there, you notice that some of my fingerings that it wasn't entirely even. So by doing it slurred, it really showed me where it's a little bit uneven. That's where I can do the practice with chunking. Same thing for the Mendelssohn. It's slurred in the score. Practice it separate. Right there, you noticed the first finger, it was a little bit late. And then going back to slurred, I can see if it's patched up a little bit better and if it's more even. So when you chunk it up, that's your opportunity to take 3 or 4 notes and play them really fast. So it's like doing a little sprint. Now, we want to impulse one of the notes and the others, just let them be passive. Now, if you do the first step that we did in this video, which is to identify the hand shape. If you identify the hand shape, this should be possible to do. So back to Tchaikovsky. That's a chunk because we have this shape ready. Actually, I'm going to move ahead in the Tchaikovsky. There's a better example, and this is where it's going to also combine this practice with another strategy that I'll show you. There's a tricky string crossing. This part in the Tchaikovsky, it can be a little tricky with string crossing. So how, again, this is mostly left hand, this video, but here's where I would practice the bow alone on open strings. So the last one, so far it was 4 notes on E, 4 notes on A, 4 notes on D, but then the last group is, this is the pattern. And then for coordination, I'm going to do left hand over here, so I'm not worried about intonation, and I'm going to try to keep the same string crossing going, and I'll do it slowly. Again, I want to put the first note of each group to be the impulse. So right now I didn't quite do that, so I'm going to add that taka 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 taka. So that last one I did not feel it was as strong. So I'll try it one more time. So right now, let's see. And then put it together. Okay, this one I can do better. So two notes on G, 2 notes on D, then 1 on each. So I'll do my fingering here for now. And this is the shift. I'll just kind of imitate a shift over here. And now let's chunk it up, just G and D string. Now just A and E string. Now put the 2 chunks together with a little pause in between. Okay, that's getting better. So you see, I'm just sharing with you the practice strategies that are really useful to really kind of organize the hand, organize the mind, because the mind goes, we want the mind to work like this. We can't let the mind go like we can't let the brain work like that. It doesn't work. So then at the end, we add the coordination with the bow. Now, I don't have time in this video to talk about practicing string crossings. I have a whole separate video for that. You can go watch it right up here. Or sautier, we can do a separate video on how to get a sautier bow stroke. This is all separate. This is all fundamentals. So to learn this kind of repertoire and to bring these passages up to tempo, you should really, more than anything, the conclusion is practice your fundamentals. Practice scales slowly, practice your shifting exercises, do some etudes. This is something, no matter how advanced you get, this is something you always go back to over and over and over. Okay, so I hope this video has been helpful for you. Let me know your biggest takeaway in the comment section below. I know I probably left a whole laundry list of other ways we can practice this music. Let me know what you're working on. Subscribe to this channel, hit the notification bell, sign up for my free newsletter down below, and happy practicing.